Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and I'm joined this week making his triumphant return by the Todd Black.
Yes, hello. Do I have a Kickstarter for you? Oh wait, that's last time.
Last, well, maybe
All right, I
next time there
technically
is
do.
one. You
I
do?
do. I do technically have one on Kickstarter right now. I'm part of an anthology about hair, and I
Okay,
don't. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why the Todd Black, would need to be a part of a hair anthology, but I am.
okay. Well. Where is that? Where is that Kickstarter so we can be part of that hair
Yeah,
anthology?
it's called Hairology. It's literally
Okay,
like all one word, and it's basically 10 to 12 creators came together to tell various stories about hair, whether it's autobiographical, sci-fi, fantasy. Uh, it's really cool stuff. It's made by Kat Kamalia, who is great at Kickstarters and doing these kinds of books. So we are 50% of our goal already, which is awesome. So I
cool.
hope I really didn't mean to pitch this. I really didn't.
No, that's great. Take
Yeah,
the time. Take the time when you can to do it.
yeah, but yeah, it's really just about. We only think of our hair when like we're trying to look good or go outside, but hair means a lot of things to a lot of people. And so, like, for example, my story is I kid you not, my secret origin of my fro and why I have my hair like it is. I mean, Eli, you've seen my hair.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's something to behold, of course, but a lot of people ask me, like, like, why? Like, why do I do that? Why do I have it like that? And I give my full secret origin in the comic, and it turns out really well, and I look even more like a dork than I do in real life.
Nah, everyone loves your hair.
Thank you. Well, no, my hair is great. It's the rest of me that sucks.
Aw. Well,
And I
here's
explained that in the comic too.
here's something that doesn't suck.
No.
Good interactions meeting professional wrestlers.
Yes.
So, game to time. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while, and you might see this run the gamut of everybody who appears on this channel. Our top 10 wrestlers that we've met or interacted with. You know, we go to a lot of these shows and a lot of conventions, so I thought like this would be a fun way just for us to, not really debate what's good, what isn't good, or anything like that. Just this is a fun way for us to just talk about cool stories we have meeting wrestlers, whether or not they're your all time favorite or you hate them but had a good interaction with them. We've I had quite a bit to choose from. I know Todd, had enough for the list, but still there's nothing wrong with that at all. And we're just going to jump right into it. Todd, what
Yeah.
is one of your 10 that you best wrestlers you've interacted with?
Yeah. So when Eli approached me about this, I was like, "Have I met 10 wrestlers?" And I know it sounds stupid because I've been to AEW shows, I've been to Comic Cons, and there have been plenty of wrestlers around. I mean, I've like seen some of them. Like I saw Booker T once and Jerry the King Lawler like hanging out at the booth and whatever. But like we're talking about interactions, and I'm like, okay, well, who have I met? And I realized I actually have met quite a few. So I'm gonna start off with number 10, which is Kevin Nash. I met him at C2E. I met him at C2E2 a long time ago. He was just in this little alley area. I mean, not like alley, but like a row at the con. And I'm just like, this was before like everything. It was like before AEW and Lucha Underground and everything. And Kevin was just there, and he was just talking to fans. He was actually really funny, and I don't know, everyone has that same experience, but he eventually came to talk to me, and I'm like, I hope that uh, Kevin Nash get into the Hall of Fame one day. And he goes, yeah, well, I'd prefer if Diesel got in the Hall of Fame, and sure enough, they both are.
Yeah,
So I mean, he was nice. It was simple. That's the thing. We don't expect the world when it comes to these interactions. We just want to, be treated nicely.
exactly. So when people like go, that's kind of for me. When people go over and above, I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah,
I'm certainly glad you had a good experience meeting
yeah.
Kevin
I know.
Nash.
I know. Not everyone has, and I understand that. But
Yeah.
like, he was technically, yeah. I actually think he was my first official wrestler interaction. Like,
My,
or at the least the one that I remember, because I specifically remember Nash being there. And then I kid you not, right next to him was Ken Anderson.
Huh.
Mister! Yeah. And that was when he was technically at his peak, which is not much of a thing. But oh, and he's injured again. But I didn't get to talk to him, but I remember like those two were next to each other. Like that was a weird pairing.
Well, TNA maybe.
Um, it might have been their TNA days. I really don't remember.
Okay.
But I know it was like well before AEW and all that stuff. So
Okay.
yeah. All right, your
Well,
first one.
well, my number 10 is DDP.
Ooh.
So I met DDP for the first time at Lexington Comic Con 2017. Really nice guy. I had him just autograph my first ever wrestling figure I ever had was a DDP figure. And somehow this one, it survived the hours and hours of matches. So I had him sign the actual figure itself. It's not the greatest signature because it's on a tiny little action figure. But still, I have my first wrestling figure signed by DDP, so it's a DDP figure. He was really cool there. I went to his panel, which was about DDP yoga, and just a really good panel, good stuff. And then after that, I started the DDP yoga program, and it was very helpful for me. I just saw him by in passing at StarCast. The first StarCast, All In Weekend on Thursday, and I just walking by and I said, like, hey, just want to thank you for the thing. Here's how much weight I've dropped in doing DDP yoga. And he goes, well, I'm changing the title of it. It's no longer DDP yoga. It's DDPY. Why? Because I'm tired of people fucking calling it yoga. And I kind of it's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, I'm just messing with you, kid. But I am rebranding it for the, and he kind of talked and he kind of asked me like what I was. So he actually had time for me. And then a year later, I did a DDP yoga seminar with a lot of other people. And part of the seminar was you got to meet DDP. You didn't get autographs because he didn't want autograph seekers to take up spots for people who want to get healthier.
Which I respect.
Just to get that. But he thought like, well, if he can get a wrestling fan to try a workout with a picture, that's fine. So I thought that was like a good balance, and great guy, really there to talk to you and help you, become a healthier person and have a good outlook on life. And you can't go to one of those and be in a bad mood around DDP. I just that's mine are kind of in no particular order, so that's just one of mine. Yeah,
that's fine. Like, and you have to respect DDP because like he really has changed lives.
Oh yeah.
With that thing, I mean, Scott Hall, rest in peace. Like he got better because of DDP.
Jake the Snake Roberts.
Jake Snake, yeah. Although apparently yoga can't heal that voice. I'm telling you, Jake, I'm gonna do your yoga, and then I'm gonna get Damien on it. No.
That voice is the greatest voice ever. I don't know what
it is the greatest voice ever.
I don't know what the fuck your problem is with the voice.
No, that was just a bad joke. That was just a bad joke.
Okay,
like, he can heal his body, but he can't heal that voice. Like, no joke is, and we could go off on a tangent about this another time. But like him doing the promos for Lance Archer in his first run at AEW, well, it's like the greatest thing ever because like he totally drilled the feeling of the monster aesthetic that Lance Archer was going for. But yeah, the Jake voice is awesome. All right, my next one is actually got to meet one wrestler twice when he was in two different promotions. I got to meet Christopher Daniels. So the first time I met him,
That's very funny because Christopher Daniels was kind of my next one on the list.
Oh, timing is everything. But yeah, I met him twice at C2E2. I kid you not. I also I just remembered I have someone else to meet to add to my list. So you forget who you meet. But the first time I was at C2E2 and Christopher Daniels and Kazarian were there. This was when they were at the Addiction in TNA, or it was a Bad Influence, one of those two. This is like, the latter TNA days when it was like, yeah. But I liked Daniels. He was really cool. He was so athletic. This was like him in his prime X Division, like him and AJ and Kazarian and all those guys just busting their butts with the X Division. I loved it. And I got to talk to him briefly. I literally just like ran into him. And I thanked him for everything. I used to do like the Fallen Angel stance where he would like juke out his hands really
Yeah.
quickly as when he came out to the ring. I was like, he
Right.
loved that. And then 2 years ago, when I met another person who I will talk about later, um, he came right by my C2V2 RS Alley table. And this was right after he had that eye injury, which still scares the crap out of me. I mean, do we know what happened?
Brian Danielson punched him in the face pretty hard.
And it like burst his eye red that it can't turn back?
It was permanent damage.
Okay. But yeah, so he came like right by my table and I go, "Oh, Mr. Daniels," and he was like shocked. And so I talked to him briefly, and he was very grateful. And I did my best not to look directly into the eye, but it was so hard. But yeah, he was a really nice guy, and I've heard good things about Daniels. And then he cut that promo on AEW where he's really good. So
Yep.
I was happy to meet him a few times.
So my first time meeting Daniels was at the TNA Lockdown Fan Fest
Ooh.
in 2007, which basically ruined Comic Cons for me forever because at the way it was set up then was you paid an entry fee. Autographs were free if you brought your own item. You only had to pay for an 8x10 at the table, and you had to pay if you wanted a Polaroid with them. Because this is before, this is back when camera phones were all pretty sketchy.
Yeah. So this is old school.
This was 2007.
Oh yeah, this is you can't complain about that now. This is like inflation. This is like times are changing. This is greed. It's like so you had it lucky back.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Like it ruined me for when I went to my first Comic Con like 6 years later. I want to say.
Yeah. Anyway,
yeah. 6 years later, I'm like, why are all these things expensive? Yeah. It's like, well, the bubble got bigger. But anyway.
No kidding. Like before the podcast, I found out that at C2V2 this year, Chris Evans is going to be there, and I've never been at a Comic Con with Chris Evans. And I'm like, oh, I should tell my friend Leia, and maybe she'll want to go get him. And then I see the autograph and the photo op price are each $250.
Yeah, it's
like, dude, I get it. You're Captain America, but you're already rich. You don't need this.
What's worse, that or $100 for Hook? And I'm not bashing Hook. But I'm still saying $100 for Hook.
Yeah, you won't bash Hook because he'll come find you.
I don't. I'll still tell him it's not $100. Worth $100 for your autograph, there, buddy. But anyway, so that was the first time I met Christopher Daniels. Nice guy. Kind of one of those very, hey, how you doing? But he was still a nice guy. My next time meeting Daniels was at a Ring of Honor show in 2016 in St. Louis, and it was when him and Kazarian had their comic book. So they were selling that, and I bought the comic book. But the cool thing is Christopher Daniels had a Hawkeye T-shirt on based off of the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. So we ended up talking for a little bit about the Matt Fraction run and the I forget who took over for Matt Fraction, but like Matt Fraction just ended his run and somebody else got started. It was good. We're like comparing the two, and it's like, yeah, God, if I were to see it, I can't think of it right now, but whoever took over for Matt Fraction on Hawkeye. And then the next time I met him, he had an Old Man Logan shirt on. This was the same time I met DDP. He had an Old Man Logan shirt on, so I asked him about the ongoing Old Man Logan series. And he was talking about that, and they were in a Kraven the Hunter story arc with Old Man Logan. And that was really cool, and we talked about that. And then the last time I got to meet Christopher Daniels, I met him with the rest of SCU before the WrestleCon Super Show in WrestleMania weekend in 2019. And I just casually brought up, like Old Man Logan, talking about Old Man Logan the last time, and if he finished the series, and what he thought about the series gonna finish up later on that year. And we're talking about that, and we're talking about comic books again. And my two friends I was with, along with Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian, just kind of looked at us like, what are you on? Like, what are you talking about? What is this Matt Fraction? What kind of stuff? So it's funny, we both collectively lost both of our groups of friends because we just were super nerding at that time.
Yeah, and Daniels is a legit fan. Like when he was doing the feat with Steven and Mel, he even did the whole Marvel versus DC thing just out of spite. And I'm like, yeah, I believe him. He's a comic nerd. I totally believe it.
There's just no way to book. There's no way to book him as a heel to the internet audience when you're bashing DC, because that makes you cool on the internet. But I digress.
Yeah. Also, I was there for All In and got to see Steven and Mel, and he was, yeah. So yeah, DC for life, baby. DC for life, and Snyderverse. Moving on. All right, next one is I got to meet this guy for free, and I'm going to put him lower on my list because he did not deliver on a certain thing. So dang it, Cutler! Yes, I got to meet Brandon Cutler. This was at the All Out Fan Fest, the one where I know you and I were at together,
yes.
Eli. But he was one of the frees that you could go and see. And
yeah, I wish they would still do that.
I know. But yeah.
Now it's like $60 for Brandon Cutler. Not saying that Brandon Cutler don't deserve money, but yeah. Come on now, man.
But yeah, he was free, and I was just like, I was in a lull between something, and I'm like, just go meet Brandon Cutler. So like I still have his 8x10. It's right here on my desk, and I gave him one of the copies of the AEW comic, which longtime fans will know that I'm still trying to get into AEW to make comics for them. I even came up with a brand new pitch. Did I tell you about the pitch, Eli?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you later. But let's focus on this for now. But I came up with a brand new pitch that will help me get me and my friends into AEW to make comics for them. And I told it to Cutler, and I even called him out on it during the BTE mailbag panel that they had at the show. And I heard nothing. So dang it, Cutler! I'm sure he's a nice guy. I mean, and the dude won the award for best blog, and like the Bucks gave him the award. Did you see that? And he deserves it. I mean,
no,
he does the editing.
I don't watch Being the Elite anymore. Okay. It's just I'm no longer. No offense to anybody
right.
that still likes it, I'm just not entertained by it anymore.
Right. Yeah, I skip through parts. It's just natural. But like the Bucks held up the award from Fightful.com over best blog, and they're like, you know what, Brandon, you should probably have it. It's basically your show you're editing, and so that was a nice moment for Cutler. So he at least won something. But he's a nice guy, and you can tell he loves what he does and hanging out with his friends. I mean, that's if you really think about it, the dream isn't to be someone like Kenny Omega who puts on the 5-star matches and whatever. It's to be someone like Brandon Cutler. He gets paid to basically go hang out with his friends, to record their matches at ringside. He gets paid for 2 different jobs, one wrestling and one video editing, and he gets to see the world and have a good time doing it. That's the dream, ladies and gentlemen. Be like Cutler.
yeah, and Kenny Omega doesn't have 5-star matches. I'm just kidding. I just want to see
how... Don't you dare! Oh, okay. You're up.
My next one is someone that I'm going to admit's one of the nicest people in the world, even though sometimes I'm not as big of a fan of him in the ring as some other folks are. It's not. Again, I want to preface this. That's not me saying I think he's a bad wrestler or I dislike him anyway. I just don't like him as much as others. And
it's killing me.
Adam Cole.
Baby!
One of the nicest people you will ever meet. I met him. First of all, the first time I ever met him was after a Ring of Honor show in 2011 before he really broke out. Like, he was good and got the buzz, but he wasn't like a superstar yet. He was just kind of smiling babyface Adam Cole. And I enjoyed his match. He was tag team with Kyle O'Reilly at the time. Like, not as the Undisputed Era, but like we're some spry up-and-comers getting ready to just give our all for the great fans of Ring of Honor. Because Jim Cornette thinks that's a good idea. So, really enjoyed the match, took a picture with him. And then I didn't meet him again until Squared Circle Expo in 2020, where it was like he was a superstar, and actually met him and Hangman Page the day after they had their big street fight on Battle of the Belts. So they both, after that brutal match, made their way to a convention, and I met both of them. And Adam Cole was in good spirits and a friendly guy after doing that. And then we went off on a tangent about the fact that we both had dips of chew in our mouth.
Uh,
And we said, like, I said, like, I really appreciate you for showing it's not just white trash that dips. Some, like, normal, respectable, put together people can indulge in this disgusting habit. And he's like, I know. I said, like, it just feels so. It's the worst thing in the world. It's disgusting, but it feels so good. I'm like, yep. Yes, it does, Adam. Yes, it does. um, so, there was a tweet that got put out a few weeks before I met him that Adam Cole is so nice of a guy that when you meet him, you feel bad about yourself because you're not as nice as Adam Cole is. And after that interaction, I can, like, attest to that tweet. Yeah, you do feel like a bad person when you're around Adam Cole because you're not as nice of a guy as he is. So, while I've been critical of some things regarding Adam Cole on the podcast and on Twitter, I will not deny that he is a fantastic person, and I like Adam Cole.
baby. That's good. I have not, full disclosure, I have not had the pleasure of meeting Adam Cole, baby. I want to, though. I could tell he's a nice guy because of how he loves his Twitch channel, the Chugs.
Yeah, that was part of the joke on there. Is like, hey, thank you for your 50-cent donation. Please tell us more about your grandma.
Yeah. Like, he loves gaming. Like, him and Orange Cassidy had like an epic Halo match on AEW Arcade, and like Halo is Adam's thing. Like, and so if Orange Cassidy can tie Adam Cole in Halo, Orange clearly is a good gamer as well as a good wrestler. So, I digress. Yeah. All right, next up for me, I have the first of 4 ladies on my list, Chris Statlander. So at that All Out Fan Fest that I was at, I intentionally stacked my deck, if you will, so that I could see the 3, who I consider 3 of the leading ladies of the AEW women's roster for the first time. And Statlander was one that I'm like, yeah, I want to go see Statlander. But here's why. So some of you don't know the story. It's sadly, I almost don't want to tell it, but I need to tell you for context. So, early days of AEW, I'm talking like before the first Revolution event, I was making my pitch to get the AEW comic made. And eventually, through the now defunct AEW Discord, rest in peace, I got the book into the hands of Mikey Ruckus, who is, of course, the maestro behind many of the epic themes that AEW superstars have. And I'm like, Mikey, I want to make this comic. He goes, dude, I totally get it. Let me help you. So he was sending it out, apparently, to multiple people in the brand, including Brandy Rhodes, who I will not go on a tangent on. And
No. You can go on the tangent. You're automatically a good person if you hate Cody and or Brandy.
I'll wait. I'll talk about Cody later. But he said, hey, Todd.
Spoiler alert, Cody's going to be the one bad interaction.
I never said that. I am going to hold something against him, that's for sure. And yes, it's related to the comic. So anyway, Mikey is sending all this out, and one day he contacts me like right before Revolution. This was when Revolution was doing the C2E2 get together. Like one day at the con, one day doing the show, and I couldn't get in Revolution. I couldn't get in seats, and he was actually trying to get me tickets last minute, and he couldn't do it. It's okay, Mikey. But he said, hey, what if I got you to talk to one of the wrestlers and got you to make a comic for them? I'm like, that would be a great idea. And he goes, okay, I have 2 in mind. And he said, how about Sunny Kiss or Chris Statlander? And I'm like, well, I could more easily come up with one for Statlander because she was doing the, Galaxy's Greatest Alien gimmick, which I like more than a woman, but I just felt Galaxy's Greatest Alien was better. And so he talked to her, and she's like, yeah, that would be great. So he said, hey, Todd, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to make a 4-page or so comic, like showing what you and your buddy Alex, who's my go-to artist, can do. And so we did. We made a 4-page Chris Statlander comic, which I still have, and I sent it to Mikey, who sent it to Chris, and she adored it, and it was sent up the chain. And right after, I kid you not, I talked to the guy who was the head of like merchandise for AEW, and about 2 weeks later was the pandemic.
Ooh.
I have the gosh dang worst luck. Now, granted, it was never guaranteed that I was gonna get to make the Chris Statlander comic or whatever, especially for a reason I'm about to tell you. But you can't make this stuff up. I literally had a phone call with the guy. I was even giving him advice on where we could sell this comic. He goes, "Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that." I'm like, "Well, I did, which is why you should hire me." I didn't tell him that, but I should have. Go full heel. But he told me eventually that he wasn't thinking that Statlander would be a good idea because, and I quote, "She's not one of our A-list talent." Ouch. Okay, that's mean. And granted, this was still early in Statlander.
Still early, and sometimes, granted,
yeah, I know.
Some people,
you could have
yeah.
phrased it. You could have phrased it better. Say like, we're thinking maybe doing the Elite first. Like, okay, I can understand. But to say that she's not A-list talent, like, come on, man. You signed her like after 2 appearances.
Or say something like she's not really on the main event level yet.
Which would have been accurate.
Something like phrase it a little differently than that.
Yeah, phrasing, dude, phrasing. So anyway, so I wanted to meet her so I could tell her that I was the guy who did the comic, and I wanted to make a t-shirt image for her. And sure enough, I did meet her. She was nice, and she did remember the comic, and she agreed to let me do a shirt for her. But sadly, she never got back to me. A recurring theme with many wrestlers that I have met and who promised the world to me, Cody. But she was still nice. I know you had a different interaction with her, which is why I find it so hilarious. I had a good one. But maybe I made the comic.
No. I'd never interacted with her. I just observed kind of, no context on, but I observed one where I'm like, ooh. But without context, it may be completely different. I just observed one that did not seem so good.
Observed. Okay. But yes, so she was nice. I still want to make the comic for her. I had a really fun idea. The whole point of the comic was going to be to talk about how she went from her galaxy in Andromeda to Earth. Because the whole gimmick was, she's the galaxy's greatest alien. How did she come to AEW? I wanted to tell that story. I was going to have fun with that story. And then
that's something that AEW as a whole should do more often, but I digress.
I know, and that's why that other future comic project that I want to tell you about eventually, that I want to do, because I want to make these comics because there are so many stories that the fans need to know, and I want to help with that. But I digress. So, yep. All right, your turn.
My next one is Arn Anderson.
Ooh.
Yes. So my first time meeting Arn. First of all, Arn Anderson is a really great guy. He's really cool. He'll talk with you. The one thing I want to say, I'll say after that, Arn Anderson's a really great guy, a real outgoing guy. Arn Anderson is an intimidating guy. Arn Anderson has has that intensity of the enforcer around him at all times. And so my first time meeting Arn was they did a meet and greet for him at StarCast, and I did a whole podcast when I first started this talking about the highest of highs and the lowest of lows that was the first StarCast. So I'm not gonna bore you with that story over again, but basically something got messed up, so one of the staff members did me a favor by putting me in the front of the line for Arn, which was cool. It was kind of like a makeup on something. And when I went to meet Arn, whenever I think of Arn Anderson, I think of this Luke Gallows story where he says he snuck backstage to try and give a tape to WWE, and he said only person that he knew with any pull was Arn Anderson, and he said he asked for Arn Anderson, and Arn came up to him and put his glass down, and just went, "Can I help you?" in a really loud voice, and it scared Luke Gallows. So I'm thinking oh well, if Arn's not pissed off, he doesn't have that vibe. And then I go to meet Arn Anderson. And I'm like, hello, Mr. Anderson, very nice to meet you. Very nice to meet you, sir! I'm like, oh God, please don't hurt me. And I'm like, I've been a big fan of yours. You're one half of my favorite tag team of all time. Well, I appreciate you saying that, sir. Are you enjoying the convention? And I'm like, So that was the first time. The second time he came locally for an independent show that was like a fundraiser for the fire department. And he's him and Barry Windham, J.J. Dillon. So they had, two horsemen and the manager of the horsemen there. They didn't have Tully and Rick, but and that was right after Arn has podcast. So I'm literally driving up to the show, listening to the Arn show. And he's, I had the Four Horsemen Arn Anderson shirt on, like, cool shirt, glad, my thing's like, okay, this is nice. And I'm like, yeah, just listen to your podcast, love it. You got any suggestions to make it better? I'm like, no, nothing can make it better, Arn. You're great, please don't hurt me.
Don't get the gun, Arn! Don't get the gun!
This is before the gun.
I just
before the gun. Then the last time I met him was at Louisville Comic Con. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a nice, smooth interaction with Arn. The picture that I'm using on the cover is from that con. And again, I had my Horseman shirt on. He's all like, man, that Conrad, he just puts out T-shirts for everything now. I'm getting all this money from these T-shirts, and I don't even know. You checked out any of the other ones? I'm like, yeah, I saw a good one. I think one's hilarious, but I don't think I'd ever be able to wear it publicly. And it wasn't quite as loud, but he just looked at me and went, Pecker Checker? I'm like, yes, that one. Just off of like one comment he made on the show saying, like, somebody asked, like, in an Ask Arn thing, how big is Batista's dick? And he's like, I had a lot of roles in my time in pro wrestling, but being a Pecker Checker ain't one of them. So there became a Pecker Checker t-shirt. It's hilarious.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But I'm like, that's one I think's funny, but I don't want to buy that or wear it. Yeah, so, and this is an interaction that didn't actually happen in person, but during COVID, they did live, like Facebook Live signings with High Spots.
Right, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. And I got a printout of that very picture of me, Arn, in the NWA TV title, printed out to send. You could send stuff in to get signed. I sent that in to get signed. And I just remember him saying, Eli at first glance looks a little bit like Daniel Bryan. And I remember just thinking, cool. Some people might think that's not so cool, but no. he saw that and I was like, yeah, glance. That kind of reminds me of Daniel Bryan. I'm like, I'll take that. Yes.
All right. Well, if you got a intimidating wrestler story, I got one too. But it's not the one you're thinking. Because technically he wasn't a wrestler. He was an announcer. I'm talking about the one and only Tony Schiavone. So
really?
Yeah. So here's what happened. I have a friend. His name's Dirk Manning. And Dirk is...
I know Dirk. Or I know of Dirk. Speaking of Arn Anderson, his Arn Anderson comic book and his Tony Schiavone comic book.
That's
yes,
exactly right.
Yes.
He is the guy who worked with both Tony Schiavone and Arn Anderson to make their graphic novels about
Wow, that life. Worked out so well, didn't it?
I honestly forgot I met Schiavone, but it's a hilarious story. So, I'm good friends with Dirk. I've known him for years, and he told me that he was going to be at C2E2 not last year, but the year before that, or this was still when everything was still shuffled around because of COVID and all that. So like they had two shows like 6 months apart from each other. It was weird. But so Tony was at the show. They had just gotten done with the book, and I wanted to meet him because at the time I had the first 2 issues of a certain comic that Eli knows very well, and I wanted to give it to him to kind of not just get his thoughts, but maybe get to AEW to you got to try everything.
Oh,
like
yeah.
That's the number one rule of being an indie guy. You gotta try anything and everything, as Luke Gallows will attest to, apparently. But so day one I wanted to meet Schiavone, and I wanted to meet him that day because I had my Sting gear on. I had my shirt. I had the Epic Pops jacket, which I love to wear. It's really nice. And so I was like, perfect. He's Schiavone. I'm dressed as Sting. It's gonna be great. I didn't get to see him. Saturday, I dressed up as Ash Ketchum. And guess who I got to see?
Tony Schiavone.
Yeah, so he's looking at... he's with Dirk at the Source Point press booth, because that's where the the comics published from. And here I am, dressed as Ash with the comics, and I'm sure he looked at me and goes like, "What's this nerd want?" And Dirk sees me and he like waves me over because he knows I want to meet Shivani. And he goes, "Hey, Mr. Shivani, Tony, this is my buddy Todd Black. He is a writer of comics just like me, and he actually has a wrestler comic that he wants to give to." And he goes, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got to work with a certain someone. I'll mention her later. But here's the first two issues. I'd love for you to have them, and if you can, give me your thoughts on them." And he goes, "Thank you very much." And just the way he talked, monotone. Right. This is not the it's Sting Tony Schiavone. You're like, this is not the MJF is a rat bag. Yeah, I know it's a JR line, but still. It's like, oh, MJF needs to go burn and heck, that kind of guy. This is just he's talking to me like one tone the whole time. And I'm doing a small conversation with him, and then I let him go. And for the first time, I'm thinking, did I do something wrong? And so I go to Dirk and I'm like, "Hey Dirk, can I talk to you for a second?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, what's up?" I'm like, "Did I do something wrong?" He goes, "What do you mean?" It's just like he didn't like emote at all. He didn't like raise his voice or lower his voice. It was like just constant the whole time. It was really weird. It's like, "Oh no, that's just how Tony is." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Oh yeah, you did fine. Trust me. He would have let you know if you did something wrong." I was like, "Oh, thank goodness." So at that C2E2, Dirk and I were like two tables apart. And so on the final day, Tony came by the table, his table, and then mine. And he made sure to mention, he's like, "Hey, by the way, I read those comics, and they were really, really good." I'm like, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Schiavone. It's an honor to hear you say that." And he goes, "You're welcome." And he walks away. It's just like, I felt better that time. But like that first time, I'm just as Ash Ketchum and everything. I mean, we all know the phrase "first impressions." You never get first chance to fix second one. But I was like, here I am with comics and Ash Ketchum gear, and I have no idea what's going through his mind. And I'm like, I screwed up with Tony Schiavone. This sucks. And Dirk's like, "No, you did fine."
Until you find out what a Batman guy Tony Schiavone is, so he probably I mean, it's not Pokemon, but
yeah.
When you find out what a Batman guy Tony Schiavone is, you're like, he probably understands a little bit.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that was the only time that I was like intimidated / nervous about someone that I met, because outside of one who I'll get to next, but it was just I had this like it's expectations, like, oh,
right.
This Schiavone, he's the voice of AEW alongside JR and Excalibur and now Taz.
Or WCW, if you're going back even earlier.
I honestly didn't get to watch WCW. I came in right after it ended, so I didn't get to see him.
But like some people may still see him as a WCW guy.
Of course. But yeah, that was one I was like, and if I was to see him again, not only would I give him the final issue of that comic series, but I would definitely be more prepared for his very base way of talking. Because you never know. You never know until you meet people. So, all right.
My next one is someone like, I don't really have a deep story. I'm just saying she's just a really nice person, and you should meet her if you have the chance to meet her. She's really friendly, outgoing. She's the sweetest person.
I know who you're going to say.
Who?
Leva.
What?
Leva.
No.
No?
Leva's up there.
Okay.
Like she's not on the list. I have some honorable mentions because I just have too many. But Leva's great. I'm gonna say Melina. She just
interesting.
Sweet person. Like, just she'll talk to you, and you can tell it's genuine. You can tell she's not being fake about it. That's not a slight on Leva. I have like an honorable mention list of just like, these are all good people you should go meet. You know what I mean? So later on, so I'm just going there because like I was just like amazed, just like how genuinely awesome Melina was. Yeah. On a number of occasions when I've met her, it's like, cool. Nothing too deep. Nothing. No really. Fun stories, no being intimidated, no talking about, chewing tobacco or comic books or working out. Just like, this is just more so, and you can even say, we'll put Leva in there too. We'll preemptively say honor, or not preemptively, help me out, you're the writer with the words there.
You can fumble with it.
Yeah. Presumptuously? Is that it?
Preemptively,
I said, okay. I thought when I think preemptive, I always think like it's not on. We'll say Leva because we took a picture with my comic books, but Melina's just a really small person, and you should, if she's at an indie show or you're at a convention or something with her, cool.
Go
Go
talk.
go 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 talk to Melina. She's great.
Nothing wrong with that. And if you're lucky, you'll see her do a split.
I was not
People,
that lucky.
yeah, people are still talking about that Royal Rumble entrance where she came and did like a split off with Sasha, and I'm like, yeah, that was definitely a moment. A moment.
Uh, I wasn't because I just kind of tune out Sasha Banks.
Ouch! Ouch! Okay. My next one is both a moment I am proud of and not proud of at the same time. I am proud because it was a good interaction. I was not proud because I say this in a very specific way. I made a racist assumption. Okay.
Oh
So,
dear.
I know. I'm not proud of it. I am really not proud of it. Okay. So here's what happened. It was 2019. AEW had decided to come to Champaign, Illinois, which is
I was
where.
there.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You were there.
Yeah, because they kind of like ditched St. Louis. We're like, oh, Champagne's only another hour and a half further away than
Okay.
St.
I
Louis.
think
So,
this must have been before I met you.
oh yes, it was before I met. Yeah,
Yeah, because like that's my hometown. Like
yeah. But I was at that Dynamite.
Fair enough.
That's when we had the lexicon of Le Champion and a really good Cody promo and
Sheeta versus Statlander.
yeah, and a very weird Brandy Rhodes segment and
Yeah.
not so good John Moxley versus Joey Janela match because it's Joey Janela.
Anyway, but so before the show they had a meet and greet, and I waited like for hours to find out who was going to be there, and there were multiple people there who I got to meet, including someone who's at my number one on my list, and on there was the Lucha Bros, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to meet the Lucha Bros. Why do I need to meet the Lucha Bros? Lucha Underground was my jam. I watched every episode of every season. I still am mad we didn't get season 5 to wrap up this storyline because it ended on a huge cliffhanger, especially with Bad News Barrett and, Ty again taking over by the possessed doll, among other things. But Phoenix and Pentagon, who were like the guys, and I got to see them wrestle like incredible matches, and they were amazing. And when I heard they were coming to AEW and they did the great match with Double or Nothing, and I was just like, I gotta meet these guys. So where's the racism come in? I'm in the line. I have the AEW comic because it was done by this point. And it was done for a very specific reason at this point, which I will get to. But I'm in line to meet them, and I'm totally pumped. And I thought, oh my god, what if they don't speak English? And I hate that I thought that. I mean, is it the worst thing in the world to think? No, technically not. But like, that's a huge assumption. And yes, I assumed it because of Lucha Underground, where they both only spoke Spanish. But I should have known better. I mean, they clearly work in the States. They clearly have, it's not like
Some.
Yeah, some. But I mean, like, it should have been obvious. It should have been obvious to me. And so, sure enough, I get there and I'm thinking about how to say, with what little Spanish I know, how to talk to them. And then Ray goes, "Hey, man, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hi." And like, okay, then they can speak perfect. Like, both of them spoke perfect English. I'm just like, great, like, awesome. And so I gave them the AW comic, and they thought I wanted them to sign it, and I didn't. But I showed them a page where I showed them in all their glory, and he goes, "Oh, that's cool." So Ray like starts signing it, and I go, "Oh no, I want you to have it." He goes, "Well, then you won't get this autograph." I'm like, "Okay." Well, I gave him another copy, and they thought it was really cool, and I got a really great picture with them, and like, I still have their 8x10. It's gorgeous. It's really great. But then later that night, I was trying to get the Elite's attention when they were in the ring and they were doing the closeout for the show. And I gave a bunch of people copies of the comics so they could like show it on and try and get their attention, and it didn't work. I accidentally gave the one where the Lucha Brothers signed away. So there is someone out there who has a signed AEW comic with the Lucha Bros signature. Yeah, not my best. I mean, I'll call that karma. I shouldn't have thought such things, but live and learn. Live and learn.
All right, so
Next.
my next one is Kurt Angle. Again, I don't really have like a deep story with this one. Just great guy. Genuinely great guy. And there's, said mine are in no particular order, and I have honorable mentions where you're going to hear a lot of, this guy's a really great guy. You should just meet him. He's fun. You may not have like as many stories, but just Kurt Angle was a genuinely really nice guy, and met him, God, so many times. I think 4 times. I met him once at the aforementioned '07 Lockdown Fan Fest, which he was a really nice guy despite being in a lot of pain. He liked the fact that when I was in high school, I kept a picture of him at the medal stand in my locker room, or my locker for wrestling. So he thought that was cool. He signed an autograph gave me an extra autograph for free to sign to the wrestling team, which was cool. Then met him again when he was more outgoing than anybody who just wrestled a 20-minute match with Christian at a house show needed to be, yet still a swell guy. Another time, just swell guy. They always had the meet him in the ring at the end of the TNA house shows was a big thing, and then for a third time. Then the fourth time I did that, and I actually had a Kurt Angle figure for him to sign. But the staff at that particular TNA house show were pricks with a capital P.
Ouch.
And they were like herding you out like cattle. And Kurt Angle was trying to be nice and talk to people and try and sign, and notice that some people had difficulty getting out of the ring and help him out despite people being an asshole. And I asked him, could you please sign that? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And as he's signing, the security guy says, like, we said no autographs, and rips the Sharpie out of Kurt Angle's hand. And then he just looks at me and goes, I'm sorry, man. So that's why I put Kurt Angle up there, because Kurt Angle was trying to be a really nice guy.
Yeah.
But when I think of me and Kurt Angle, I don't think of asshole TNA people. I think of a really nice person that went above and beyond when it probably put him in pain to be there.
Fair enough. All right, my next one is, I'm not gonna lie, someone I have a huge crush on. It's Hikaru Shida.
Cool.
I got to meet her at the All Out Fan Fest.
Can I do one sidebar about that real quick? Because I wanted to meet her at that fan fest, and I'm kind of standing in the big line right after I talked to you.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm kind of looking. I'm like, I think I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to buy the Sheeta one because you had to pre-order. And then I get there and it's sold out. So I didn't get to meet Sheeta.
Yeah.
But go on. That's just my Sheeta story.
I had a crush on Sheeta since literally Double or Nothing 2019, where she came out with the wooden sword and did the Great Joshi match. And this was in her short hair form, so I would argue she looked even prettier. And she is like radiated beauty. She's just so great. And so I had, wait for it, the AEW comic, and she was in it, and she was blown away by it. And I praised her. And this was during the pandemic, so I had the mask on, so I actually took it off for her. I don't know why I didn't with all the others, but I did for Sheeta. And she was just great. She's so kind, and she's a Zelda fan. And I told my friend Kara, who was at the event with me, like, oh, I wish I was good enough to date Sheeta. And she goes, oh, she's dating Kenny Omega. I'm like, crap!
Is she?
Oh, I think she was. Like, I don't know if they're still together or whatever, but like, that's what my buddy Kara, who's like very in tune with the community, like, that's what she said. I'm like, well, now I know I got no chance. How do you go from Kenny to me?
That just kills everything for me, because I thought Kenny and Kota were actually a couple.
Well, they are, or they were.
Okay.
It's just like, it's like any relationship, ebbs and flows. On again, off again. They are the Ross and Rachel of the wrestling world. They'll get together eventually. It's just gonna take some time.
All right.
Unlike me and Sheeta, I have no shot. So, which is fine. She deserves better than me. Anyway.
Oh, don't say that.
I mean it. She's so great. I'm not. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Well, I don't know what to say.
Follow that up. Follow that up.
Okay, I will. My number 4 is Johnny Gargano. Or number 4, I had him listed, but it's no particular. My next one is Johnny Gargano.
Okay.
So the first time I met Johnny Gargano, he was a regular down on the St. Louis indie scene for a long time before he got signed to WWE.
You mean
Um,
NXT?
that's still
There's a
WWE.
difference.
It was a WWE contract. He got signed to WWE.
Fine.
Amy Hoozles. Um, so first time like I bought like gimmicks from him, and he was just really cool. Took a picture, this, that, and the other. Then there was one day. This was in 2012. He didn't have a gimmick table, and he just started talking. Like my friend just started a conversation with him because he made like I can't remember the reference, but he made some reference that my friend thought was cool during his match, and he just started kind of talking, like literally just shooting the shit, talking to us. And he had like a striped green tank top on, and he said like, yeah, like this is what I imagine if Steve from Blue's Clues worked out, he'd wear something like this. And some like we talk about one thing, and he's all like, yeah, I grew up idolizing Shawn Michaels. It wasn't until I became an adult I realized I spent my entire childhood idolizing what was essentially a male stripper. You think that'd mess me up, but it didn't. um,
If you say so.
and then he somehow there was like a sketch he did in Dragon Gate USA where he was like naive and giving stupid gifts to like try and suck up to like the factions. And he said to like Naruki Doi, like, and just the Naruki just went, thank you, you go home. And like it just kept going, thank you, go home. Like that was the sketch on Dragon Gate USA. So I ended up using that like on a Notre Dame football message board to some USC fan that wanted just to troll. I just went, use the thing, thank you, go home, which led to us talking about football. And I said, well, I'm a Broncos fan. He's like, I don't hate the Broncos, even though I'm from Cleveland. I was too young during the drive. And then he went, no, wait, screw you. You get all the good players. You guys just got Peyton Manning. Which I just always thought was funny. It's because anytime I see Peyton Manning, I think, screw you. You guys just got Peyton Manning. And then I met him just last year at Squared Circle Expo, where we talked about Wolverine, because I had his figure with him and his Wolverine attire, and I had a Weapon X t-shirt on, and told him about seeing him all the time in St. Louis, which he thought was pretty cool. And then I also told him I was in the crowd when he won the NXT title at TakeOver New York. So just, again, outgoing salt of the earth guy is Johnny Gargano. And if you go to a event with him, if he's at one of the meet and greets before WrestleMania or SummerSlam, I advise going to Johnny's line.
All right. My number 3 is a group that I met. It was the Elite. The Elite.
Now, which incarnation of the Elite? Because that took upon many, many forms.
I'm going to include all of them, which in this case is the Bucks, Kenny, Hangman, and Cody. Because they much like the group itself, there's a lot of interesting ways that it all broke down. So at that C2E2 event I mentioned before, where they had the Revolution thing going on, Kenny and the Bucks were doing. Actually, no way. I take that back. This was before. This was literally the year that AEW was announced. It was like, I'm pretty sure it was like a month or two after the Jacksonville event. I apologize. So Kenny and the Bucks were at C2E2, and they were promoting AEW. And so naturally, I went to the AEW panel. I was not tabling at the time. And I'm like, great. So I went in there with nothing but an image of what the AEW comic could be like. And I went to the panel, and I mentioned, like, hey, I want to help out with AEW. And I know you said don't ask for a job if you can't back it up. Well, here's my comics that I've made. I held out a big stack. And I actually have a pseudo cover for an AEW comic that you all might want to be part of. And he goes, and Matt goes, Mrs. Matt, get that guy's number. And I'm like, okay. And so I showed her the cover. They actually took a picture of it and showed it to Cody, who texted back, dope, legit. And I later met them in a photo op, and they were nice and sweet, and I still have the picture. And that started the whole, like, oh, I really want to work with AEW with the comic. And I actually had back and forth with Mrs. Matt about what we could do with the comic. And she didn't get back to me. We were so close. I kid you not. She told me, like, legit, she told me, hey, let's plan something for the first All Out. We'll bring you in for Starcade, and we'll have like a couple hundred copies of the comic. And this was right before Double or Nothing. So she goes, message me after Double or Nothing, and we'll get things started. I was like talking with her about prices, like what was the best comic publishers to use or printers to use, and all that. And nothing, nothing at all. Which brings me to Cody, because later that same year, after Dynamite had debuted, but before the Champagne event, Cody, Brandy, MJF, and the Tony Khan did a special meet and greet at the U of I, which is where Tony Khan graduated from. And of course, I had to go, so I bought my ticket and I got to meet them. And I met Cody, and I go, "Hey, Cody, I would love to make an AEW comic." And of course, MJF told me off, so I said, "Shut up, Majorly Just Foolish." And that was like one of the highlights of my life. Just like, because I don't know if I'll ever get to tell off MJF like that again.
And you didn't give him enough time to come up with a nice little retort to you, which might be bad.
No, he didn't. He didn't get time to retort. So I'm just like, I gave him the backhand, and he shut up for once. But anyway, so I was like, hey, I want to make this comic for you, and here it is. And he goes, wow, this is really cool. I go, I'm going to be at the Champagne show, and it actually gave me the card to buy a ticket for free, and that's why that was my only show that I ever got to be second row on the show. It was great. Camera side even. So I go, I will have the comic done by then if you want to talk about it. So I give him the card. He goes, okay, I'll get in contact with you. He never does. So I'm like, fine, I'll do it myself. Grab the Infinity Gauntlet and no. So I make the comic with Alex. It's an 8-page comic. I go to the show. I start handing out all the copies. At the end of the show, Cody does the walk around. He goes to meet the fans, and this guy who I had bonded with during the show reaches out from the barrier and holds out the comic so Cody can see it. And Cody's looking and he goes, "This is really good." And he goes, "Oh, well, I didn't make it. This guy did." And I go, "Hey, Cody, do you remember me?" And he goes, "I do." And I go, "Well, yeah, I made your promise. I have the comic done by the show. There you go. I want to make the AEW comic with you." And he goes, "Okay, I'll make sure I get this in the hands of the right people." And I go, "Thank you, Mr. Rhodes." And I start to walk away. And he goes, "Hey." And I turn around and he holds out his hand and he goes, "Thank you for doing the work." I'm like, "That's what you told me to do the work." Because that was like his big phrase at the time.
Yeah.
And never heard back from him. Curse you, Cody. Mikey Ruckus did more for me than Cody Rhodes. All right, so don't tell me my anger ain't legit. And that.
What about Mrs. Matt? Why aren't you mad at Mrs. Matt?
Oh, I am. I mean, I'm not gonna be mad at I don't know the circumstances behind what happened between our phone calls. I am disappointed that she basically ghosted me, especially after she promised me we would do something for All Out. But for all I know, she was told to stop for an unknown reason. I don't know. But Cody specifically said, "I will message you. I will call you. We will get this in the hands of the right people." I have no idea if he did.
He could have been told. Maybe that's the reason he left. And he said, like, "Oh yeah, and you didn't let me get back to Todd. I'm leaving."
Right. I wouldn't hate him if that was the reason. And that leads me to Hangman, because that was the most recent one of the Elite. I was at C2E2 Shock, and they were there, and it was Saturday, and that was I was tabling, and so I couldn't get away from my table that often, and it was Saturday, and I was having a terrible Saturday. And for anyone who doesn't know, Saturdays are the best day to sell things at Comic Cons.
Absolutely.
Everyone is there on Saturday. Like, it's the day. And I'm there for like 2 hours.
Nope. I have lost
like one thing.
Oh, there you're back. Good.
And don't get me wrong. I'm an indie guy. I'm an indie guy. I know I'm not supposed to be like the bestseller and whatever. That dog?
Yeah, the dog's Ziggy is
The dog is loose. Who let the dogs out?
Ziggy is very happy you're an indie guy.
Thank you. But yeah, so I know I'm not supposed to sell the most, but I sell pretty well at those shows, and I'm not selling anything, and I am in depressed mode. And so it gets close to time for me to meet Hangman. I'm like, I have my friend look at me, and I go, "Hey, can you watch the table? I gotta go see Hangman Page." And she goes, "Yeah." So I leave. The line is long, like it is long, and it takes me forever to get to Hangman. But I get there. This is when he's world champion, and he has the belt, and it's awesome. And guess what I handed him?
The AEW comic book?
I handed him an AEW comic! And he told me a hilarious story because in the comic I have the a recreation of the phones where they revealed AEW and Double or Nothing, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I remember that night. It was so dang cold, man. I was freezing my butt off to get that shot done." And like I'm just laughing, and he loved the comic, and I got a picture with him with the title, and so I can now say definitively every single member of the Elite has seen the AEW comic. It's their fault they never called me. It's all them. It's their fault.
Yep. All
I'm
right.
trying, man. You can't say I haven't tried.
No, you cannot. I will give you all the credit.
Thank you.
So my next one.
I'm not done.
You're not done? What?
No, I'm done. I'm done.
You no. There's that other member of the Elite we don't talk about anymore.
I did meet Alex Jabali. I did. And
I was talking about another member of the Elite that we don't talk about anymore.
Nakazawa?
He had an umbrella.
Oh, yeah. I don't talk about him. He was such a villain.
Yeah, means
Anyway,
IRL. We're going from a villain to an Ocho or a goat. Next one for me is Chris Jericho. I met Chris Jericho at Wizard World St. Louis 2014. And this wasn't my ideal circumstance, but it was funny you mentioned meeting Tony Schiavone dressed as Ash Ketchum earlier, and like, that's kind of not the greatest of circumstances. But with the way my cosplay schedule for that weekend was set up, I was going to do Wolverine on Friday. On Sunday, I was going to do Superboy. And then we were doing a group Batman villain cosplay on Saturday. And this was like already planned, when we bought the tickets. And I was going to be the Joker. And then after we'd already done that, bought the Joker costume, everything was good to go. About a month before the con, they announced Chris Jericho was going to be there. Saturday only. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to be in Joker costume when I meet Chris Jericho. That is going to be my photo with Chris Jericho. So...
What a delightful cosplay to
It was very delightful. I go up there, and I go through the autograph line first, which, I'm just kind of waiting. And then I get to him, and I'm seeing him interact with everybody, and this is when I found out, how much of a super nerd Chris Jericho really is, because he was talking about, Adventure Time with kids. And then I get to him, and he is marking out about dude, that's great. And we're talking about, he's like, who's your favorite Joker? And I'm like, oh, Mark Hamill's like, really? That's interesting. You're not picking Ledger? I'm like, I love Heath, but Mark Hamill's the man. And we're talking about that, and we started talking about everything else. And he wrote a story in his book about how when he first signed with WCW, when he got called that he'd be booked for Nitro, he would do the Nitro dance, and if you met him and asked him to do the Nitro dance, he would do it for you. So I asked him about that, and he kind of laughed, and we did that. And then we're kind of getting shooed away by security, and Chris Jericho, to his credit, goes, hey, he's fine, we're talking. So I'm like, fuck yeah, Chris Jericho. And then he said, where can I get a jacket like that? And I said, you should wear this whenever whenever you come back to WWE. And he goes yes, that and full makeup. And then I was disappointed that when he came back to WWE, he didn't have full makeup. But the Painmaker kind of looks like it, so I'm going to consider that promise kept by Chris Jericho.
Winning.
And then we did the pro photo op, because that's all they allowed to do at that convention was the pro photo ops. And it was me and my buddy, and he said, so what do you want to do for the picture? I said, I think we just got booked for Nitro. And then we're doing the Nitro dance that he wrote about in his book and just showed me in my picture with Chris Jericho. It is, and it's such an obscure reference, but I wondered how many people have that picture. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Chris Jericho.
So my second one, my number 2, we're almost there. Shouldn't be that much of a surprise, ladies and gentlemen who know me. It is Thunder Rosa So I have met and interacted with Thunder Rosa multiple times in my career over the last few years. I mean, it's not inaccurate, but still. Um, I did not know her before she came to AEW and when she was the NWA World's Women Champion. But my friend Maria was a huge fan, and this was when I was really trying to push the AEW comic. And she goes, "Why don't you ask Thunder Rosa to make a comic for her?" I'm like, "Really?" She goes, "Yeah, she's awesome. You should go do it." So on her website at the time, she had an email address on it to contact her. So I wrote up a quick message, "Hey, Thunder Rosa, this is who I am. Love to make a comic for you, blah, blah, blah." And I jumped back into my friend's group chat, and I'm like, "Okay, I won't hear from her again." 5 minutes later, I hear back, and she goes, "Yeah, I'd love to do a comic. Let's do it." And I'm like, "Why can't it always be this easy?" Like, do you realize how much better my life would be, especially just in AEW, if everything was that easy? Like, I would have Tony Khan calling me back. And anyway, uh, also, I didn't tell you about how my mom actually knows the lawyer to Tony Khan, but that's another story
That is
entirely.
another story.
It is a true story, but still didn't get me hired. But I we did a couple phone calls, and I was just like, okay, I want to make your life story, and like just tell me your story, and we'll put it in comic form. And for the next year and a half or so, we on and off we did the comic. We made 3 issues, which I still sell at Comic Cons to this day. So if you see me, ask for the Thunder Rosa comic, and or if you see her, ask for the Thunder Rosa comic. And she loved it. She even told me that she cried reading the 3rd and final issue because she was seeing these moments brought to life. We ended the comic right before her steel cage match with Britt, where she got the title at last. And so for the volume edition, we made a special cover with her with the title and her epic makeup. She really dug that. But it was really great, and I miss talking to her. I really do. I occasionally text her, but she doesn't message back, which is fine. She's busy and she's healing from an injury. But at that very same All Out Fan Fest where I met Sheeta and Statlander and Cutler, she was there, and I'm like, I have to see her. Like, this might be my only chance, and sure enough, it was the only chance because of various events. But I got in line. I was handing out the comic at the event, which I know you remember.
Yes.
And I finally get to her, and she sees my hair because like I'm wearing a mask, and she sees my hair, and uh, at the event because of COVID, they had all the superstars behind plexiglass, and they even had like hand sanitizers should they have like touched anyone or shook hands or whatever. And so I get up there, and she reacts happily to see me, and then she looks at the security guys and goes, "I'm coming around. He's my friend." And I'm
Oh.
like, "Oh, we're friends status." But yeah, so she called me a friend, and we talked, and I gave her an advanced copy of the comic because she hadn't had a chance to look at it yet, and it is issue 2 if I recall correctly. And my friend Caro at the event was at the event, and she wanted to be Thunder Rosa, but she didn't buy the photo thing. And I go, "Well, I have a +1. Do you want to come with me?" She goes, "Oh, I can't." I'm like, "Caro, you're coming with me." She goes, "Okay." So so I have a picture of me, Caro, and Thunder Rosa. Both of us are in masks, and it's just she was so great, and I will continue to champion for her in AEW, out of AEW, because she let me do what I want to do, which is right. I can say now that I have written 2 wrestling comics, 1 fan comic for AEW and an actual autobiographical comic for Thunder Rosa, and I will keep pushing to get more people to let me do this because I really want to do it. So you never know. We'll see what happens next. But yeah, Thunder Rosa, and if it wasn't for a certain someone else, Thunder Rosa would easily be number 1. But I have a very special number 1 that I will reveal to you soon. So please give me your number 2.
My number 2, I guess for the sake of this list, is Kenny Omega.
Boom.
Just really cool guy. The first time I met him, I've only met Kenny twice. I know, right? Like I'm saying this like thing where it's just like I've only met him twice. Like there's so many people.
Happy I met him once, so I'm
exactly.
already
Yeah, exactly.
I met him with the Bucks, so I didn't even get to like talk to him one-on-one. So you did. So
well,
congrats.
the first time was at Starcast, which
Fair.
was with the Golden Lovers, and it was your standard convention. Hi, how you doing? Sign, picture. Thank you, handshake, goodbye. So I met him and Coda that way. The next time I met him was at All Out, or it was the day after All Out 2019. He was doing the it's a signing at Pro Wrestling Tees. I know Ziggy, he was. And just really cool. I had like his Final Fantasy looking shirt on from when he won the G1 in 2016. So we appreciate that. And then for our photo op, we did the old school DDT Kenny Omega pose. You know, everybody else wanted to do, you know, the finger guns and, you know, the goodbye and good night or the too sweet. We were doing the old school. It's like an anime girl pose almost.
So very Kenny.
Yes. So that's what we did in ours. So he appreciated the fact that I knew about the about that pose. Yeah. And then when I met him, that, you know, they did photos and then we went back out and then they brought us back in for autographs. I guess they thought that would save time. I can't say whether or not that would or not. But when I went back, first of all, I bought like 6 autographs to like give away to people. So
kind.
So for friends for like Christmas and stuff. So yeah. One of them was because they said pro photo op and I thought I was going to get printed out and have them sign it. But alas, they just sent it to your email. So I'm like, well, I have this extra Kenny Omega 8x10 now. But anyway, I brought this DVD of a Ring of Honor show from 2009 in Collinsville, Illinois, suburban St. Louis, where he wrestled Davey Richards on it. And for the longest time, until All In and going to WrestleMania weekend and, you know, WrestleMania 35 itself, like that match stood atop as like the best match I'd ever seen in person, was his match with Davey from that show. It also doubled as my buddy Jedi's bachelor party because he got married the very next week after that show. So, you know, I had, you know, Davey's from St. Louis, so I already had Davey's autograph on it, you know. But here it is, like 9 years later, I finally get Kenny Omega's signature on it too. So just that was cool. And the fact that like I brought something like that up, he's like, you know, wow, that's really cool. Like you remember, you know, I never really liked any of my other United States work up until, you know, AEW or up until, you know, just recently. So like, well, I mean, no, I love this. This is one of my favorite matches I'd ever seen in person, you know, it holds true today. And, you know, just Kenny was a really cool dude, and we talked a little bit about that, and our mutual love of DC Comics over Marvel came up. That's not me saying I hate Marvel before all you Marvel fanatics want to come cancel me.
I love Marvel, but I do prefer DC.
Yes.
Like, I dream of writing for X-Men. I mean, that's just a fact.
Yeah. But, you know, nothing, none of the Marvel characters to me are as cool as Batman, Nightwing, Green Lantern, or the Flash.
Yeah.
Or Batgirl.
Yeah. Focusing.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that was kind of us with the comic books. Yeah, that's Kenny Omega. Cool dude.
Yeah.
Cool nerdy dude.
All right. My number one.
Do you have any honorable mentions?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Again, I unlike you have not met too many wrestlers like on the ring. Like, you've gone to whole shows that have just been full of wrestlers. I have not had that pleasure.
Well,
I did meet Peter Avalon.
Okay.
But it was in connection with the person I'm about to talk about. And I mean, I saw some others. Like, I saw Jade at the Fan Fest, and she is just as jacked as she looks. Like,
gosh. I just want to point, before you get in there, that 2021 All Out Fan Fest, the Acclaimed were a free one.
Yeah, they were.
Think about that for a second now. Oh, no.
Oh, I forgot. We forgot one.
Because
I'm pretty sure this guy isn't your number one. We forgot about Kip Sabian.
Kip's really cool. He's in the honorable mentions.
Yeah, I met him when he first debuted the box, overrated under it, or underrated over it. Uh, that would have been really weird. Overrated under it. No, what? No, that doesn't sound good. But yeah, he debuted at that All Out Fan Fest with the box, and that was my first time I met him with making the shirts, and I still make some shirts for him today. But he was great. So he would be my biggest honorable mention, just because I technically haven't interacted with him outside of him doing the silent box act twice at the show, and then you and me at Forbidden Door when he was walking around. So, but yeah, my number one is the one and only Leva Bates. She is. If I crush on anyone harder than Sheeta, it's Leva, and Leva I know is taken, so I have settled for just trying to be her friend. But and yeah, she absolutely deserves better than me. So how this started, it started very innocently. I knew her as Blue Pants, but I didn't realize at first she was Blue Pants because that was a joke. She didn't have a name; she was just Blue Pants. But she comes to AEW, and on Being the Elite, there is an episode where the Inner Circle kidnaps Leva and takes over Being the Elite as a whole. And so the internet, or the elite internet, go nuts, and I start a Twitter thread stating we have to save Leva. Like I'm playing this full kayfabe. Like we gotta save Leva. What do we have to save her? And this whole thread starts. Like I did not mean it to start like this, but this whole thread starts of like people like showing off gifts of who we have. So we had like Link, we had Optimus Prime, we had everyone like loading up, and I'm like, all right, we have our party charge. A couple weeks later was the Champagne show, and in that meet and greet with the Lucha Brothers was Janela, and then the librarians Peter Avalon and Leva Bates when they were still together. And so I met Leva. She was great and beautiful. I have a thing for blue-haired girls. I think you remember that, Eli, if you remember like my comic stories. But so meeting one in person was great. And I told her like, hey, if you remember, do you remember that Twitter thread of all the fans trying to rescue you from the inner circle? I'm the guy who started that, and she loved it. Like she was over the moon. And eventually, a few years later, she was at Planet Comic Con, which is a Comic Con I frequent on the regular now.
I
And
met her at a Planet Comic Con convention in Louisville. Yes.
there you go. But mine was in Kansas City, Missouri. And she was there, and I'm like, hey, Miss Leva, I'm tabling at Planet Comic Con. I know we met that one time. If you have the time, could you drop on my table? I was not going to get a chance to see her, and I knew she'd have a long line. And she goes, I probably won't. I'm too busy. I'm so sorry. He's like, don't worry about it. I understand. 10 minutes later, I'm just setting up my table, minding my own business, and all of a sudden, this blue-haired woman standing next to me with a cat, and I literally do like a jump scare and go, Miss Leva! Yeah, I was like, I didn't expect it. Like, I thought you said you were too busy. Like, yeah, well, I had a minute. I wanted to come over and see you. And so we talked, and she was just so kind. And her cat tried to kill me, but I don't blame her for that. And I gave her one of my comics for free. In fact, it was my blue-haired girl story called Home, and she took that to the ring with her on like AW Dark, I believe it was. And so
Sweet.
that was so sweet. And then, kid you not, a few weeks later was the All Out Fan Fest. And while she wasn't at a table, she was there for the You Don't Know Jack game panel. Um, and I was there with Caro because she wanted to play, and Caro won the event thanks to me. No, that's fourth wall breaking. All right, I told her a certain answer which skyrocketed her points. She won because of me. Make it be known. Anyway, and at one point, they're like asking for questions or whatever, and I'm like bouncing up and down, and Leva looks over and she goes, "Oh, look, Todd's here." I'm like, she remembers me by name? I almost fainted. Like, dude, I almost fainted. I was like, she remembers me. Holy crap, she remembers me. And eventually, I got to talk to her later, and it was great. And she's actually going to be at Planet Comic Con next month, so I will be sure to talk with her again. And she is so kind. She's such a nerd, and I love it. She loves what she does, and I wish her nothing but happiness because she is just like one of the greatest people on the planet.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
my
top that.
Well, my number one is just well. First, I'm gonna do my honorable mentions because I just have a lot of stories.
By all means.
Undertaker was really cool, but it was just a pro photo op and a go. But he was still really friendly. At least took enough time to say hey and bye and shake our hands. And my buddy was doing a Biker Mice from Mars cosplay,
Oh
and
my gosh.
had a like a body muscle suit on. And as we're leaving, he apparently said to like the people behind us because they came up and told us like to the people go like, "Did you see that guy? He was pretty jacked." So about my friend. So that's cool. Shawn Michaels was really cool. Again, like a little bit more time than I got with Taker, but it was still kind of a very. It was at WrestleCon, WrestleMania weekend, and he had a line that was so long they shut the escalator down. So
I believe it.
yeah, but it was cool. Mick Foley was awesome. Really personable guy. First time I met him was kind of rushed, but he was still nice enough to, be cool. And then we met him after a comedy show, just 2 years ago. Now that I'm thinking about shit, no, it was just last year. My bad. And really nice guy. Also sells autographs really cheap, which I admire. JBL was really nice, if you can believe that.
I remember that. He was like,
yeah.
I really couldn't believe that because of the
Yeah.
stories I've heard about.
I just went up to his table and, he was like getting ready to leave. He's like, no, I got time for one more. Let's go. And I'm just kind of like, oh, cool. And he had it was Jackie Robinson Day, and I didn't know what baseball jersey I had. Like, oh, no, this is a Jackie Robinson, jersey. And he was started talking about baseball, and he talked about how much he admired Jackie Robinson. I'm like, well, that shows me not to judge books by their cover. And yeah, really nice guy. Ricky Steamboat's great. He has a special place because I actually met him in my hometown, which I never thought I'd ever meet any wrestler ever in my hometown, much less Ricky Steamboat. Jimmy Hart's a really nice guy. One of the nicest wrestlers you'll ever meet. Jerry Lawler was really cool. Met him in Metropolis for the first time. And then subsequently met him at some other conventions and stuff. Jerry's just a really cool dude. The Rock and Roll Express, really nice. Met them at an indie show. Personable and outgoing people. Ended up drinking beer with him a little bit after the show was over. Eddie Kingston, which I'm sure I've told this story on this channel before. First time I met Eddie Kingston, I was in line at an indie show for the Lucha Bros. But I loved Eddie Kingston. This was in 2019. It was right before I went to WrestleMania. Was trying to get a picture of Eddie Kingston because he'd done shows, but he didn't do gimmick tables or anything. And I just happened to catch him like, sir, can I please get a picture with you? And this is in line to meet the Lucha Bros. And he went like, sure, but just hang on 1 second. Hey, Phoenix, he wants a picture with me. I got fans.
I believe that. That was a pretty good impression. I like that.
Yep. Trish Stratus was really nice. I was dressed up as formal Jet Black from Cowboy Bebop, and she said I looked handsome in my suit, so that was really cool. Minoru Suzuki was cool because he took a picture of my Kazanina Rei tattoo, which was awesome. Sergeant Slaughter is really great. She's really, really nice. He put me in the Cobra Clutch, which was also cool. Jushin Liger was really cool despite the language barrier. Lex Luger's a really nice guy. X-Pac I did at StarCast. They had things called eat and greets where you got a meal and got to talk to him for an hour. Met a lot of really good friends in that eat and greet, and also got to hang out with X-Pac, who's really cool. The only thing that I think was funny was he said, guys, I'm willing to answer any questions you may have, but just remember I've had 4 concussions and did a fuck ton of drugs in my day. And I'm just like, okay then.
First step.
Ty Conti's nice. Britt Baker was really nice because I made an idiot out of myself in the first picture.
Oh, I've met Britt.
Oh, you have?
Oh yeah, and then I shadow dropped the Thunder Rosa comic in front of her, just almost out of spite. I don't know why. It was just funny to me. I had the AEW comic, and I showed her that first, and then right below it was the Thunder Rosa comic. So I pretended to grab all of them, but I intentionally left the Thunder Rosa one behind. And so when I turned back around, she was looking at the comic, going, "Oh yeah, I made a Thunder Rosa comic," and she goes, "Oh yeah, she actually looks cool there." Very Britt Baker.
I have a bad thing where I want to do the DMD, and I'm not doing it right. And I'm like, I messed that up. I'm like, oh, let's get another picture. We got to do that right. So then we do the DMD. And then I have, just because of the funny story, two funny stories. Chuck Taylor, because I met him working at McDonald's. Like, he came by the McDonald's I just happened to be working in, and I'm like mopping floors and bringing in sweet tea, and I kind of look. This is 2010, so this was like before only the hardcore wrestling fucking nerds knew Chuck Taylor. And I'm kind of like side glancing, like, that looks like Chuck Taylor. That really looks like Chuck Taylor. I think I'm going to ask him if he's Chuck Taylor. Excuse me, sir, are you Chuck Taylor? Yeah, I am. Hi, I'm a big fan of your work. And he was cool. And then at StarCast, he was at the bar. And I met him again and said, hi, you probably don't remember me, but I was working at a McDonald's once. And Mitch's like, actually, I do remember that story because I was coming back from a concert with all my friends. And when that happened, they're like, people know who you are? And I'm like, yeah. So he said, you helped me convince my friends I wasn't a loser. And I was actually doing something in wrestling. And then the last one's Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin. They're really nice people, but I just have a story. So in 2020, they had one Comic Con I could go to. They social distance everything. It was kind of like, well, let's make this happen. And Sammy and Darby are part of the meet and greet, and then we're just kind of watching, and we're seeing two guys like shoving each other, and we think, oh, they're messing around. And then one guy just straight up comes and like slams essentially does the Alabama slam, like Hardcore Holly, onto the ground. And then Darby jumps up and tries to separate them, and then the other guy takes off, and then he's chased out of the building by a guy in a Black Panther cosplay, and a guy in a Gambit cosplay is trying to just restore order. Come to find out, Black Panther and Gambit were two off-duty cops there doing like a cosplay, like they like the Real Heroes cosplay kind of group they do, where they like cops and firefighters and nurses and, you know, teachers doing stuff, like doing costumes and stuff. They're two off-duty cops, so then I'm seeing like Darby and Sammy Guevara, who recorded it, being questioned by off-duty cop Gambit about what they had seen. And then Black Panther comes back in, and he's asking Sammy Guevara, if he could please have his phone because they may need this to press charges against the guy. So that whole day was like, that whole incident's like a fever dream. But number one for me is, again, kind of in no particular order, but I think if I had to put him in order, he would be top three no matter what. My top three would be the top three no matter what. Cody Rhodes. Just because he just seemed like, every time I met him, he was just a really nice and giving guy. The first time I met him, won't mention the person I was with because I'm no longer with them, but, that part wasn't so good, but the fact that he, like, gave us free autographs, like, was cool. Met him again at another show when he, again, how many autographs you need, take anything like, oh, you have that, oh, and then I'll sign that, oh, I'll sign that too. And I like just straight up paid for him. He's like, well, you paid for more stuff. Here, take more, here, give, here, does that person want one that you're with? Here, let's take another picture then, like, oh, well, here's gave somebody a shirt that was in my group. Like, here, have them take a shirt then. I'm like, okay. And then finally the last time I met Cody was the day after All In, when he had a line from Chicago to Peoria, but was still taking time to talk to everyone, and I mean everyone. And it didn't matter how long Cody Rhodes was running the show, damn it, and if he was going to stay there until midnight to talk to everybody, he damn sure was. And cool. Gave 2 free autograph. Like, I paid for the autograph. I didn't need another one, but he gave me another one. I'm like, okay, cool. And then gave my buddy one. Then they had to leave to do a panel, and they felt so bad that they took 75% off their merch. And I'm like, that's really cool of them. There was Cody and Brandy, but they like felt so bad about making us wait longer that you could get like a Cody shirt or a Brandy shirt for $5.
Uh,
And they didn't have in. I had all the Cody shirts and one person in the line. I thought about buying a Brandy shirt, but all they were women's, and the girl selling for me tried to convince me that I was in good enough shape to pull it off, and I'm like, no.
no.
No, I'm not. Thank you, but no. But yeah, just again, like maybe not as big of an interaction as Jericho or Kenny, but just kind of like, wow, like that's the epitome of someone that doesn't need to be that giving, but they are, and I really appreciate that. Cody Rhodes at that Starcast could have easily said, "All right, I'm out, deuces, y'all," but didn't. Kind of the same thing with Chris Jericho. He could have said like whatever, but he said no. We're having a conversation about the Joker. So, that's kind of why those ones up top are kind of what they are.
I understand.
Yeah.
All right, that's both our lists.
That's both our lists. Well, let us know your best wrestler meeting interactions in the comment section below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content. Check out the Todd Black on Twitter at
Guardians_comic.
And the Kickstarters.
Yeah, check out Hairology. Just type in that word, you'll find us.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye bye.